Hey guys, welcome to our fifth installment of Logic Pro 10 crash courses. The last time we were talking about recording MIDI and I was unable to hear what I was doing, and this did not sound very good, what I ended up with. So before we get into talking about recording through microphones and stuff, just let me show you a couple of things we can do with MIDI. So we'll finish that up. So we're talking about getting content into our session with loops, hitting the O button, getting loops in, getting some virtual synthesizers and drum machines, whatever we want involved. After this, we're going to start talking about editing and mixing, so that's kind of where we're going. So we're mainly going to talk about recording from microphones today, but just to finish up with this MIDI stuff, recording virtual instruments, let's take a listen to what we had last time. I think I have the metronome on. Hit the letter K. So that's not sounding very good, I discovered. With my sound card and my screen capture software, I'm unable to hear what I'm doing. But I took a listen and I know that what you heard is not good. But because it's MIDI, we can take this to a new track and we could find a sound that we like. So I went looking around and I found some cool sounds. So listen to this time warp. All right, so we can also shift option and drag this to a new track, create an alias. All right. This track is kind of a pad, so kind of a sustaining smooth sound. And I'm going to take this track, go into my inspector, I'm going to transpose it up an octave. And then this kind of thing in the background will sound kind of spacey. All right, so here's what we got. I'm going to kill the click track. All right, so that's sounding a lot better. Let's hit the letter O and let's pull in an audio loop. So let's pull this punchy disco beat. We're going to drop it right down here below where our track starts. And I'm going to teach you a new command. See how this is only 2 measures and this sequence goes for 4? If I hit Command R, it's going to, wow, it just replicated it once. I didn't expect that. Usually it pulls up a dialog and asks me how many copies I want. So that replicated our track quickly. All right, so here's what our track sounds like now. I'm going to double click right here. So pretty quickly, with just a little bit of content, we have something that sounds pretty good. So that's one of the cool things about Logic, is it just gives you a lot of great sounding stuff to work with. All right, let's move on to recording some audio content from microphones. And in terms of microphone choices, just real quickly, condenser microphones are going to require phantom power. So make sure that if you have something like this $99 Audio-Technica 2020, that you have a device that will provide phantom power so that it will work. The good news and the bad news, a microphone like this is very sensitive, so it picks up a lot of details. It'll sound nice and bright on your voice or guitar or whatever, but because it's so sensitive, it will pick up computer fan noise, the garbage truck driving by in front of your house. It just picks up everything. So just keep that in mind. So something like that can be good. If I were in the market for a large diaphragm condenser, I might go to Gauge, this website. These guys make really nice products. This is a $149 emulation of a vintage microphone, and these sound pretty good. So I would definitely look at the Gauge audio products for either a large diaphragm condenser or a matched pair for $184. That's pretty crazy. And they make pretty good products. They're not going to be as well matched as more expensive microphones, but this is a good starter kit if you just want a starter kit for condenser microphones. These also would require phantom power. Another option would be a dynamic microphone like the Shure Beta 58. I'm pretty sure you can find it a little cheaper than this. If you call somebody like Sweetwater and say, hey, can I get a better deal? I'm sure they would give it to you even cheaper than that. But this is what actually I'm using right now. I don't have the best of voices or even speaking voices, but just so you have an idea of what this microphone might sound like. I use this in production a lot. I'm in the middle of a large room. There's a little bit of fan noise and kids dancing around upstairs above my head, and the microphone is not quite so sensitive. I can get up close and make loud noises, and it gives a pretty flat and honest response. So that's another option. This has been used, SM58s have been used on many classic albums, so there's nothing wrong with these for sure. All right, another last option. My first match set of small diaphragm condensers were these Rode NT5s. They run about $400 a pair. And they're pretty good. If you want to record something like piano, upright piano, acoustic guitar, getting a couple of these and placing them like this to simulate a pair of ears. So you would end up recording these. This is called ORTF. It stands for Organization Radio, Television, and Film. It's a French acronym, so it doesn't translate quite right. But these, you would record them to 2 channels and pan one to the left speaker, pan one to the right, and they sound, it sounds very immersive. So this sounds pretty good on just about everything. Even you could even do vocals this way. It would be fine. All right. So there's some general thoughts about microphone choices. In terms of techniques, if you're doing a vocal and you're not very experienced, I always coach people to sing past the microphone, to try to sing to the back of the room, to close your eyes and imagine you're on stage and doing a concert and you're just jamming. A lot of that mental stuff really helps with your voice, your vocal technique, and your just the way you sing. So that could be good. Also, making sure you're hydrated. I live in Colorado, and it's particularly applicable here. But making sure your voice is hydrated, drinking water the day before, or whatever. Those things can really help with getting good vocals. For a condenser mic, I would get maybe 5 or 7 inches away. Some people put their pinky on the diaphragm, then outstretch their pinky to their thumb as far as possible and put their lips that distance away. So their pinky right there on the on the microphone, then stretch out their hand and put their thumb on their lips. If you're just doing real quiet stuff, I really like the vocalist to get close. Just make sure to not put any P's or other sounds that make a burst of air. Make sure to not hit the microphone with that. So you might want to make sure your voice is going to the side of the microphone a little bit, or have a good pop filter, one of those mesh things that goes over it. All right, so that's just a crash course in getting good sounds. I would make sure your microphone is isolated as much as possible. So even if you have to get a couple of heavy winter jackets and prop it up behind the microphone to get rid of reflections off walls, that sort of thing can make a big difference quickly. Or there's products you can certainly buy to isolate the microphone a little bit to get a cleaner sound. So those are some general tips. Let's go ahead and make a new track. So let's go up to this plus button. This time we're going to do an audio track. Let's go ahead and just do one. Input, we're going to go number 1. You see it automatically does record enable, create. I'm going to mute it right here. I do that for a couple reasons. One, in my screen capture, I don't know what you're hearing, and I'm always afraid I'm going to be sending you duplicate signals and it'll sound kind of weird. So let me double click and name this Pete. All right, so let's go ahead and get everything real quiet. Well, actually, I'm going to mute everything because I'm not hearing it, so I can't really sing along with it. All right, so I'm going to click up here in the ruler, and I'm going to drag a section here. Logic does something, it's automatic loop recording. Let me show you how this works. So I'm going to hit record with the letter R. You know what? Before I do that, I forgot. Before you record, you want to make sure your levels are good. This little meter is okay for that, but let's hit Command 2. Let's take a look at it on this meter. This is a little, it's bigger and we can see what's going on. So you always want to make sure to sound check the loudest that you will ever sing in the take. There's nothing worse than doing a sound check where you do something like check, 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 check. Then when it comes time to start singing and it's loud, suddenly you're a whole lot louder than the sound check and you're having problems with your recording level. So you want this to record, you want it to peak up here around 2/3 of the way up, something like that. You don't want it way at the top. You don't want it way at the bottom. Don't be confused with the loudness of this speaker or what's in your headphones. You got to check these levels with your eyes. If it's too loud in your headphones, you can pull down this fader right here, and it will probably take care of it. There might be other ways with your hardware to adjust your headphone volumes. You might want to hit this letter I button. It would allow you to listen to the sound coming in as opposed to any sound that was already recorded on the track. So since there's not any sound recorded in this track, we might want to monitor the input, what's coming into it, rather than what will be coming out of it once it's recorded. All right, so that's a whole lot, but let's go ahead and hit record, and with this loop enabled, let's watch what happens. I gotta think what I'm gonna sing. I know what I'm gonna do. There's my 1 bar count in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. All right. So you saw as it was recording in this loop mode, it kept on cycling back. It never stopped. Sometimes I'll record this way just so I can do 5 takes back to back to back. Once I do that, here's what we can do. So we have this audio. We can play it back. I'm double clicking on this upper half of this and it opens it up. 1, it's playing this top 2, part. 3, 4. Now what you can do is, I don't know if you can hear that. Let me check something. Preferences, audio, output. Maybe you can. I hope you can. Let's say I made a mistake. Let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's say in measure 6, I made a mistake. What you can do is you can go to one of the other takes. You can select it and watch what happens when I release. It gets thrown up into this comp track. You'll see down below there's 1, 2, 3 tracks, and those are all the takes I did, and the top defaults to the last take you did, but you can pull in bits and pieces from the other takes, and you can kind of have an all-star compilation of all of those tracks. That's called comping. So it's great for solos. If you do 5 guitar solos, you can choose the best bits and pieces, a vocal track for sure. So that's one way that I'll use this loop recording. But here's the other. I want to get back to just having all this. Okay. Go over to this letter A and click on it. what you can do is select this option called Export. Sorry, I want Unpack to New Tracks. This top one is a duplicate of this one. I just know it from experience. Comp, so I'm going to delete that. Now I have 3 tracks of me doing the same thing. So this is a way that I produce backing vocals. So I will sing the harmony 3 or 4 times, even 8 times, over and over and over through that loop record. I'll unpack it, and then you end up with this big sounding thing. So this top track I might pan to, let me zoom down a little bit. How come I don't see my pan knob? It's really weird. Huh. Okay, well, I'll just pan it here. Pan this a little left. Pan this one a little right. How about all the way? All the way, all the way. Then we'll leave this one in the center. So here's what it sounds like with 3 voices. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. All right, so you get the idea. There's some timing issues, but getting those layered vocals, you can get really big sounding backing vocals or get a virtual choir. In terms of editing, let me show you a couple of things with that. Let's go ahead and double click on this track, and it pulls up this dialogue. You know what? Let me try something. Let's just hit Command X. Command X, once this is double clicked, that's what I wanted to do. The double click didn't matter. So let me close this. X. I'm going to click on that, then Control X. And it brings up this thing called strip silence. If you do a bunch of tracks like this, that silence, even though it seems silence to us, it adds up and creates background noise in your track that's undesirable. So with this X, you can start to adjust what it's going to kind of trim out, the in-between times in between those numbers. So we can adjust the threshold, meaning at what point do I want to start trimming to be higher or lower. Just make sure it includes everything you want. You can tell it to the trim line at the beginning to draw back a little bit with this pre-attack time, and then the same thing on the other side with this post-attack time. You could stretch it out a little bit. Good. Now it's going to remember these, which is helpful because when we go to the next track, we don't have to dial in all these settings if we do it right the first time. So hit OK. The last thing we're going to do is sometimes we might get a little noise right as the sound enters, or maybe there's a breath that I'm not seeing and it's going to abruptly stop. So we're going to put fade in and fade outs in each one. In order to do that, we have to make sure we're on this track so that we see the inspector for this track. And on this track, let me see if we can find it. Do this drop down. Oh boy, that makes it into the more. There we go, fade in. I'm just going to drag up. These numbers mean milliseconds, so 1,000 per second. So let's just do somewhere around 30. And then on the other side, fade out 50, something like that. And that just makes sure we don't get any pops or weirdness. It can help with that. So we'll do the same thing with this. Let's click on this track. Control X. It remembered all our settings, so hit OK. Control X, hit all our settings. There's some noise here that we didn't want that, so we'll delete that. Let's see if we can select all of these and do fade in and fade outs. I don't know if it'll let me. Yeah, looks like it will. Here we go, fade in. That's handy. All right, here's what it sounds like now, kind of cleaned up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can nudge these around and align them up as much as you want. Okay, so there's some basic recording tips. Remember, man, that's about I want to cover. If you don't like this choppy look, sometimes I don't like that. I want to look clean. What we can do is record a little bit of silence, So here we go. Let's just record a little bit of silence. Letter R. All right. So I did this to make sure it started right at measure 3. Then I'm going to select all of this. Then I'm going to hit the T button for the word tool, and it brings up different tools we have. So we're transitioning into editing. And what I want is the glue stick. See how next to the glue tool it says number 6? So I can just type the number 6. And if I hover here, see how I have the glue bottle? So all I have to do is click here, and it says, do you want to create a new audio file? Yes, please. And then it cleans it all up. Let me undo, because there's one thing I forgot. So back to the letter T. T gives me this main tool again. We're going to option drag this. And if you're ever unsure, if you're at the beginning of the measure, you can, while you're doing your option drag, add shift. And it snaps it right to the beginning of the measure, or right where you had it before. That can be handy. So option, drag. I'm going to hit shift, hold down shift now. It snaps it in. We're in place. Okay, now we're going to select all this. You can't do all these at the same time with the glue stick, because what it will do is try to glue all of them together, merge them, and we don't want that. So we're going to cancel. You have to do one at a time. So select, click, create, select, glue stick, click, create, drag, click, create. There we go. Now the reason we did this is it's a lot easier if this were a part that came in later in the song. So it's a lot easier to line this up if you have a very defined downbeat of a measure. So let's hit T to bring up our tools, hit T again. Now we can select all of these, select all these, then option drag to make our copy. So now we have another copy, and I just put it right here, a measure before I want them to come in. So that's another handy trick there. All right, well, I hope that is some helpful stuff to help you get going. We're going to get into some more editing and mixing next time. So that's all we got this time. Hope this helps, and you guys continue to make some good music. See if you can record something. Oh, man, I should have said this earlier. Okay, if you're recording on a laptop, I got one thing to say. In terms of checking your levels and getting a good sound, there's some things we can do. So on a laptop like this, or any kind of computer with a built-in speaker, often the microphone is right next to the speaker. So if you try to record with the built-in microphone, your voice might be coming out, or the drum beat or whatever parts might be coming out in the speaker right next to the microphone. So the simple fix is to just plug in a pair of headphones. That'll send all the sound from your session into your headphones. It will let the microphone be a lot more isolated, get rid of a lot of the noise that's nearby. So I'd give that a try. And in terms of checking levels with that, you're going to have to go into System Preferences, then into Sound and Input, and again do your sound check here. This is where you would sing your loudest and make sure it's at a juicy level but not clipping. And so this is where you would conduct your sound check. All right, guys, hope this is helpful. I look forward to hearing your tracks. Once you kind of put together a whole project, try to see if you can create a project using loops, 1 or 2 virtual instruments, and record 1 audio sound source. See what you can do. All right? We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.